I've been studying pathophysiology over the holidays, and we're up to the neural system. And we were working on chronic pain and acute pain and the pathways. And just reading and going over my notes for chronic pain, a lot of what was coming out is like I'm thinking, oh my god, that's fibromyalgia pain. Like, it's insane. So there are two pathways, these pain receptors. There's acute and chronic. And the acute comes in, it fires at the spinal cord, and that shoots straight up from your thalamus into your cortex, and it tells your brain, there's something wrong with your arm or your leg or whatever. And then your logical brain goes, okay, looks down, sees how bad it is, takes measures to fix it, to hold it, heal it, put a band-aid on it, whatever. And when that's happening, it sends down another tract down to that junction where that first pain signal is coming through, and it sends opioids and it sends things to dampen the effect and to take the pain away. And that's acute pain. That's very short lasting, minor wounds that happen and then get healed up. And then you've got your chronic pain, which is, so it comes through and it releases little transmitters saying, there's a problem here, and it's slower. It goes up through the thalamus, and then it goes to your limbic system, which is your emotional centers. So this pain is coming up, and it's talking to like your mood, your emotions, your sleep, all these things. It can cause depression, anxiety, and then it goes up to whatever part of your head, your neck, your arms, your legs, wherever. But thing is, the chronic pathway doesn't have a corresponding pathway coming down saying, okay, that looks like we can take care of it, I'm going to give you some opioids and calm that down. That doesn't happen. And I'm not sure why not, and I'm thinking, my notes are saying that it's detrimental and there's no evolutionary reason found so far for this pathway, for this chronic pathway, and if it keeps going and sending signals and never gets resolved, it gets sensitized, which means it doesn't take much for it to send out more of those stimulating transmitters saying pain, 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 pain. And the more inflamed it gets, the more it sends out those signals, which again, I'm thinking fibromyalgia, like, why is it doing that? And I've been reading up, there's lots of different interesting perspectives, and there's been doctors and there's been osteopaths who've said, we figured out this way. Like there's Dr. Perrin with his the posture of the thoracics and the lymphatics, and getting the lymphatics flowing the correct way and getting the posture aligned, and that has an effect on the sympathetic nervous pathway systems, and eventually your body will flush out what it needs to flush out, and the pain slowly, but that takes like a year or two. And then there's the other doctor that I read about, I can't remember his name straight off the bat, but he was going on and on about phosphates and how in the kidney, when there's some people have this mutation in their genes where they can't detoxify phosphate out, and so that accumulates up into the body, and then that starts to cause pain after a long accumulation. And he found a product, an over-the-counter product, that will slowly get rid of the phosphates. But still, that takes like over a year or so, and even then it gets much worse before it gets better. So I've got all of these up in my head and I'm thinking about, and I'm still thinking it shouldn't take that long. Why does it take that long? And the more doing my pathophys, I came across what happens with the parathyroid when it goes into hyperactive mode, and the negative feedback loop that usually brings things back into homeostasis gets derailed. And there's this overabundance or underabundance, and the calcium and phosphate ratio gets completely out of whack. And I'm thinking, if that's getting completely out of whack, that'll turn off these other enzymes and systems in the kidneys to adequately excrete these properly. It'll want to hold on to things because he wants that balance to be correct. And what I've noticed in Osteodouce doing genes is genes, I can harmonise them and then a week later they can be back, or they can be up here. It's like the body, the environment turns these genes on and off as well. I think if you take a genetic example at one static point in your life and say, well, that's how it is for always, I don't think that's right. I think your body knows when to turn on these enzymes and make them work, and when to turn them off, and when the body needs to excrete things and when it needs to reabsorb things. It'll automatically do these things. So I'm thinking, okay, so maybe I looked into links with the parathyroid and the thyroid gland and fibromyalgia. There's a definite link. Definite link. And when I checked with my client, her parathyroids were very inflamed, and her thyroid, which the thyroid part of the cells, not the T3 or T4, but the one that helps to control calcium, was inflamed as well. So I harmonized all them, brought them all back in, and every time I've looked at her genes for excreting phosphate and whatever, they've remained steady. And incidentally, she's been in a lot of pain, just like this guy said in his book. And I'm still wasn't completely convinced, or I felt bad it was going to take a year of this up and down of really bad pain. And then she's had good days as well. She's had some really good days where she's been fine, and then it's just the pain's just shot up again. So her body is trying to bring itself back. The thyroid and parathyroid are coming back down and working properly as they should be. And then I found all this stuff about the pain pathways. And while I was doing that, I was doing my study and I was reading this, and all the dots were connecting. My brain was going, this is what's going on with my client. So I came back to my Osteodouce space, and I settled in, and I said, okay, this pathway, it's called the paleospinothalamic pathway, and it's one of the oldest pathways. It's not myelinated, it's slow. And so I went in there and I said, okay, and it was quite inflamed and overworked, and with Osteodouce I was able to bring it down. I brought it right down to about here. I wasn't sure whether it was still meant to be going or not or whatever, so I harmonized it. And then I went to her other pathway with the A fibers, which is the acute one, and it was really, really low, it was almost switched off. That's my husband. And it was almost switched off. And so I harmonized that, and it came back up. And I thought, if I can get some opioids coming down to dampen the effect at that junction, it should help a lot. And I did that. And I was crossing my fingers going, God, I hope this works, And so I did that, and that was really, really super interesting. And I don't know, I can show you on my notes. I don't know if you can see this properly, but that's a cross-section of the spinal cord, and then you've got the fibers coming in, and there's a little junction in here where it stops, and then it sends off to the next load of neurons, and the A ones come down and do the dampening effect, so it stops it here at this junction, so it never gets to the brain. So I wrote my client an email, just going over, the earlier morning's discussion and blah, blah, blah. And then I said, I've worked on your pain pathways. I hope it's helped. And I heard back from her that night. Normally she will just give me a one-line response saying, thank you, because that's all she can really deal with the brain fog and whatever. But this time she wrote me this huge, big email saying, the last couple of days it's been excruciating, and then all of a sudden the pain just stopped. It it just went boom. And I went, holy crap, that's when I went in and harmonized her in the afternoon. So yeah, I'm really, really super excited, because if that chronic steady drip or fast drip of pain that's just going through, that doesn't have any kind of, there's no stopgap, there's no way to cut that cycle that we know of so far, or that we're aware of. I am beginning to have an inkling of what that might be, but I was able to give her quite a big break, and the pain just dropped dramatically. So that was really, really, I was really excited about that. Really excited. So that's my update so far. And so I'm thinking, well, why does this go? It goes through the limbic system and all of this, and then the other stuff doesn't happen. When you get a sore, when you hurt your thumb, you don't become anxiety ridden or depressed or unable to sleep because you broke your thumb or whatever. But why does this chronic pain, what's it really all about? And why is it going through? Is it maybe a disorder of the limbic system first? And that's telling your body to be in pain because what's up here is in pain. And one of the theories that I've come across is a Dr. Sarno. He's been around for a long, long time. And his theory on chronic pain is that there's a lot of trauma and there's a lot of bad memories, or people are in situations they don't want to be in, and instead of being able to think about that and deal with that trauma for whatever reason, it sends signals for this part of your arm to hurt, or your neck to hurt, or your legs to hurt. And then they hurt so much, and it's just like this ongoing thing that you don't have time to think about what's going on in here. You're being completely distracted by this pain going on elsewhere in your body. And he was very, very, very interesting. And he says there's a subtype of people who develop this. They have characteristics. They're usually incredibly conscientious, high achievers, perfectionists. They have that mentality, and so that mentality, that part of their brain is saying that we can't deal with this right now. This is too much to deal with, and so the body goes, hey, deal with this instead. This is throbbing and killing me, and they don't have to deal with what's in their head. That's what he's saying. So that's really interesting. And he's saying that there's a lot of anger as well. There's a lot of anger that's being repressed and not being allowed to be let out. It's either not safe to be angry, or you're being conditioned to not be angry, like a lot of women have. So he's saying your subconscious is really super angry about your situation or the trauma or the memories, and instead of being able to deal with it, it's too much to deal with because you're not used to being that person who's angry or out of control or whatever. It's being shunted through into your body and out, and it's being just this chronic pain cycle is initiated. So his way of getting out of it is to recognize it, and he's written some books which I haven't read yet, and he's probably got a lot of people rave about him when they go through and they do the work. Personally, even though I'm not that character type, I'm not a perfectionist by any stretch of the means, or that conscientious, I'm a bit of a wild card and an anarchist. But I found screaming therapy was really beneficial for me when I would be depressed about past memories, or when I was treated badly or whatever, and I never stood up for myself, or I was never able to do anything. I was had all this suppressed rage. And so a few times I've gone out somewhere on my own, no one can see me, hear me, and I've just screamed and yelled abuse and thrown things out in nature and just had a massive temper tantrum. And the endorphins and stuff that comes after that is amazing. So I'm thinking, letting go of your anger and doing it in a safe way releases endorphins. And maybe those endorphins are what will come down that tract for that chronic pain tract, and tell them, say, hey, we're dealing with this trauma now, you can stop. That's my theory at the moment anyway. So, yeah. What's my advice for fibromyalgia patients? Find your trauma and have a massive tantrum in a safe place. Maybe that's the start of it. But Osteodouce wise, you can actually go to those tracks. Look them up. Paleospinothalamic tracks. And you can bring them down. And then later that day I actually went into my client and hers was down to here, and I'm going, I'm wondering if I can just hold it for that, just keep holding it, and then my hands touched and I couldn't feel the movement of life or whatever, that just whole pathway was shut down. So that's the way. But I'm thinking, we can do that and we can give them some relief, but unless they deal with the trauma in their head, that pain is going to come back, and they'll come back next week saying, can you do that again? Which you can if you want, but it's, you know, I would do that and then I would tell them to go somewhere safe where no one can hear them and just have some tantrums and yell things and, you know, be like a small child where logic doesn't matter. You're just angry and you need to let that emotion out and deal with it. So, yeah, I mean, 15 minutes, that's quite a long talk for me. But anyway, I hope this has been helpful to someone. Yep, I am an Osteodouce practitioner, which is a soft or gentle osteopathy. It's an energetic form of healing where we use osteopathic principles and philosophy to heal the patient. The patient, we believe in helping the body to heal itself. So we give it a little nudge in the right direction and the body will heal itself. But this trip down the fibromyalgia rabbit hole has been really interesting. Okay, I'll see you next time. Bye.